So this is the BC Healthy Communities Active School Travel Pilot Program informational webinar, which is a mouthful. So welcome everybody to the webinar. This webinar will be recorded. It's really advisable that anybody who's planning on submitting an application via the expression of interest does view this webinar before they do so. So if you know of anybody that wasn't able to attend today, we will be posting a recording of this webinar up following the event today that they can view that. So just familiarizing everybody again with this chat feature. If you don't see a chat icon or chat box on your screen, feel free to go down to the bottom ribbon of your Zoom window and you should see a chat icon down there. So if you click on that, the chat box should open up. And I just invite you all to familiarize yourself with that chat box now by putting your name, your school or your district or whatever organization you're joining us from today. And we just kind of informally asked if people wanted to put in their favorite way that they got to school as a kid in there. So if you're seeing that, wondering what that is, feel free to put that in there as well. So today we're going to be using our chat feature just for posting any technical issues that you're having. If that pops up and you need some support or some comments that you have to make, feel free to do it there. Our colleague Jacob Kramer is going to be monitoring our chat box today, and he's going to be posting up some links to resources as we're going through them, so you can watch for them there. Where we'd like you to post questions as they come up today is actually in the Q&A box. So if you don't see that, that's on the bottom ribbon of your screen as well, and you can just click on that Q&A icon and see that we've already posted a sample question up there. So that's where we'd like you to please post your questions in the Q&A box, and then we'll be stopping intermittently to aim to answer those questions throughout the webinar, as well as a nice fulsome Q&A section at the end. So without further ado, I think we're going to jump into the webinar today. So what we're going to cover here is a good fulsome program overview for everybody, talk about program participation, go over some of the eligibility requirements for applying, and then talk about the application process itself. How do you submit an application and what needs to go into that? And then that Q&A section at the end. So before we get started, we want to do some acknowledgements here. So first off is a land acknowledgement that BC Healthy Communities offices are located on the unceded traditional territory of the Lekwungen speaking people. And we acknowledge this territory as a reminder of the discriminatory, the racist, and the colonial practices which have a lasting legacy and continue to create barriers for Indigenous peoples and communities across the province. And as we're doing acknowledgements, I also wanted to give a special acknowledgement to the educators of our province who are working now under very challenging circumstances. I, as a mom with a child in the school system, I really do feel particularly grateful at this time of year for everything that you are doing and all that you're doing to support us families and to support our kids to have an education. So just really wanting to acknowledge you and take some time for that as well. So some formal introductions here. So my name is Jennifer. I'm a community wellbeing specialist here at BC Healthy Communities, and I'm the pilot program lead. We also have Claire Sauvage-Mar with us, and she's our grants and engagement coordinator. And you'll hear a little bit more from Claire later on in the presentation today. So a little bit about BC Healthy Communities. We are a province-wide not-for-profit organization, and we operate at the very unique vantage point of between public health and planning. And our goal is to facilitate the ongoing development of healthy, thriving, and resilient communities. And we do that with a particular focus on applying an equity lens to our work, and that will also be applied in this program as well. And BC Healthy Communities, we do our work through what's called a Healthy Communities approach. And if you're not really familiar with what that is, I encourage you to please visit our website and take a look at some of the programs and the activities that we do. And there's some more information there about how we do our work. And I also just wanted to take a couple minutes here to talk about Green Communities Canada. So they're not a formal partner of ours, but they've just been so supportive for us to be able to take their resources and their school travel planning model and adapt it and apply it here in BC for the purposes of this pilot. So Green Communities Canada is a national association of organizations. They're based out of Ontario, and they've been leading active school travel in Canada through their school travel planning model for about 15 years. So I just wanted to acknowledge them as well here. So on to the agenda for the day. So the pilot program overview. So what we're trying to do here in terms of a long-term vision for the work is that active school travel is safe, convenient, and sustainable for all BC students and their families. And what we mean by active school travel here is walking, cycling, scootering, anything with wheels, getting to school, and even active transportation. So stuff to do, or sorry, I should say public transportation. So even having to take the school bus or the train, just so that supports kids to be walking as well. And so the reason why, we're doing this is to support some of these benefits to occur. So on average, Canadian children are now significantly less physically active and socially connected than they were before the start of the pandemic even. And the active school travel programs, they are shown to be successful in supporting a number of positive outcomes, such as environmental outcomes, health outcomes, and that includes things like safety, academic performance, and air quality. And then kind of honing in on what the benefits are in this time that we're faced with now is that active school travel actually supports safe physical distancing and more time spent outdoors, which are two really important guidelines that we are trying to support students to be able to follow, and their families as well. So that's despite all the challenges that the year brings, we are remaining dedicated to this goal of continuing to support more students to use active modes of travel more often for the school journey. And so the pathway that we're taking to do this is a two-phased approach. So we are here in phase one, which is our pilot year. So during this year, we are aiming to assess the feasibility and the applicability of resources and information from existing active school travel programs, namely out of Ontario. And we're going to test that out with a small cohort of BC schools. And we're doing this in a very adapted manner, especially given the fact that we're in a year of COVID. We're going to take our learnings from this year and we're going to apply them to support us to be able to develop a Made in BC approach at a provincial scale to support active school travel as a full-scale program. So that's what we're trying to do here with this. So the objectives that we're aiming to achieve, we're drilling down a little bit more specifically here, is we're aiming to build the capacity of schools to increase active school travel and also support schools to develop and strengthen a number of partnerships between the school and others. So we do acknowledge that this is a very challenging year to be partaking in a pilot program. So we are aiming to be as flexible, as adaptable, and supportive to you as possible. So we're going to work alongside you during this pilot program year, and we're going to equip you with the knowledge and the tools and resources that you need to be successful. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. So onto the timeline for the program. So the pilot program will take place between essentially November of this year and December of 2021. And with guidance and support, schools will be taken through first an online-based learning curriculum delivered by BC Healthy Communities. And this is, I will go into more details about what this is, but it is, just to be clear, it is for the project lead, not for students, not for a school as a whole. It's really us engaging with a project lead and delivering this material to them. The second piece of it is that the project lead will develop an active school travel project using the school travel planning process as a guide. And I've got some dates in here for generally when that's going to happen. And I will go over this in more detail with you as well. So just to kind of reframe this for you, these are the two main program components. So number one is this learning curriculum, And that's taking place again between this January to the end of March period. And then the project implementation, whatever kind of after school travel project that the school is going to undertake, they can start that in January. They don't have to wait until this curriculum's over. You can do that concurrently. And the period of time you're doing that in is all the way to December of 2021. And during that time, we're providing you with ongoing capacity building support. And I will provide more information to you as to what specifically those are as well. So the reason why we're lining it up this way is to support schools to be able to do the bulk of their actual project implementation pieces in that optimal time of year of spring and fall. So we're kind of front loading a bunch of material to the project lead to really set you up for success, set you up on the right track for doing that work in that spring to fall window. And on to, so the time commitment. So how much time are we asking for is going to be required from a project lead to engage in the program? So I've kind of broken this down. It'll be about 3 hours per month for a project lead to participate in direct program activity. So that includes part of this learning curriculum is going to be delivery of information via webinars, such as exactly what we're doing here today. And we're encouraging the project lead to be able to attend those webinars in person. And if they cannot, then that's okay. You can view them at another time as a recording. But we are really hoping to do everything we can to build the capacity of that project lead. So, you know, if they can be in attendance in person, it's just so much richer of an experience, and you get that chance to kind of ask questions and get some information live. You'll also be receiving support from us. That's part of that time. We'll be sending resources to the project lead via email, having an opportunity for phone conversations, providing support that way. And then it's also including time for a project lead to respond to some short surveys that we're going to be sending out intermittently. And that's really for us as the program to gather information about how the program's going. Is it working well? Is it not working well? Because again, this is a pilot year. We're really trying to learn as much as we can. So there are going to be a few short surveys for the project lead to fill out. Project time, as in time spent doing project work, is, you know, we say on the expression of interest that the project lead needs to be able to commit a minimum of 10 hours a month to the work. So I'm putting 7+ hours to make it that 10, but really it's going to be extremely variable depending on the scope of the project that is chosen, how many people are involved to provide support to that person, what kind of capacity or resources they have available to them. So that'll all be really dependent. So we can't really give you a solid number in terms of total time. Just know that we need at least 3 hours of your time per month for program engagement. So the learning curriculum, to give you a little bit more detail about that, what is the learning curriculum? So it is essentially just information, it's tools, it's resources that we're taking from this Ontario-based school travel planning model about how to increase active school travel. And we're just sharing it with you, and we're asking you to use it, and we're asking you to provide us feedback on how that worked. Did it work well for you? If not, why not? And why are we doing this as part of the pilots? Again, it's to support the project lead to build their capacity for developing, implementing, and evaluating school travel plans through an equity lens. So who can a project lead be? I have that bolded because I want to just make sure everybody's clear about who that person is. So it's somebody who is situated in a role either within the school or working directly in a direct capacity with the school. So that could be a PAC member. It could be a Healthy Schools lead or another role that sits outside of the school setting, but they're working to directly support active school travel outcomes for a particular school. I will speak a little bit more to the role of that project lead a bit later, but I wanted to be really clear up front so I don't lose you as to who that person is. So what kind of information are we sharing in this learning curriculum, and how will it be shared? So these are the main kind of content areas that we're looking to get across in the learning curriculum. They will be delivered through, I think I mentioned before, a combination of support such as webinars. So we'll be aiming for the delivery of 4 webinars over the course of January to the end of March. And offering opportunity for phone conversations if it's supportive to the project lead. If they have any questions, how do I do this? How do I develop this plan? We're here for you. And then we're also hoping, and this will be dependent on the cohort of schools that we get, to have some kind of a community of practice. So if we're able to do some kind of a Zoom platform meeting where we have the opportunity for project leads to ask questions of each other, share their challenges, share ideas, how do we get over this, where can I go for resources and support, that would be an opportunity as well. But again, we're really cognizant of the fact that time is really difficult to get from people right now, and we'll work with you to figure that out. So as we are aiming to be as flexible and adaptive as possible during this year, I do want to make some really important notes with you about some of the modifications that we're doing to the existing school travel planning model for this group of schools this year. So with the exception of equity, a school will not be required to implement all 6 E's of the school travel planning process as part of their project. So you'll instead determine which of these categories work best for you as a school. And if you're a bit lost on what the 6 E's are, just take a look at the program guide. There is a little section in there that has a blurb about the 6 E's of school travel planning and where to go to learn more. I believe it's from the Ontario model, so they actually use 5 E's, and we like some other programs, namely here in BC, Ready Step Roll does this as well, is adding that 6th E of equity in there as well. So at a program level, we're going to be gathering information about which of these E categories our schools ended up using, why did they choose them, and what levels of success did they see in choosing those? What were the learnings from that? And just building that into our own kind of assessment of the program impact. So a school is also not required as part of this pilot to execute the school travel planning model in its entirety to be part of the pilot. So what that means is that we understand from previous feasibility studies that to do so can take 2, 3, or more years in some circumstances, depending on the size and scope of the project chosen. So we are aiming to support schools to follow the model, so doing that assessment, planning, implementation, evaluation process to the degree that is feasible for you this year. So you might be doing an assessment piece, like a school site walkabout survey, for example, gathering some information about that, developing it into a plan of what do we want to do with this? What are our key priority areas to work on this year? Probably getting started on doing some of that stuff, but you might not be able to get to the point of actually evaluating the whole thing. And we understand that we're doing this in 1 year. We're just going to help you make sure that you've got a plan for that. What will that look like? And what's your timeline for getting that done? So wanting to be clear about that again, that we're aiming to be really reasonable here and really flexible. I have 2 more slides to get through in this section. This is the longest section, and then we're going to stop for questions. So the goal here for the project implementation piece is building upon that learning curriculum component. Project leads will facilitate actions at the school level to support an increase in active school travel. And again, this is with support from us to help you apply an equity lens to the project work, to help you develop and strengthen partnerships to support long-term success of the work you're doing, and helping you to link your project activities to longer-term outcomes. So you do get support as well with this. So what are some examples of some projects that you could do? There's a whole bunch of them, but I've just picked a few randomly here to kind of at least illustrate what this would mean. An environmental scan, a school site walkabout survey might be an example of being built into something like that. Student-led engagement strategy. I've seen some really interesting and really cool ideas around photo voice projects. Doing safety improvements and infrastructure. We have that is permitted as long as those using funds towards infrastructure is done so in a way that it's supporting longer term outcomes as well. So it's not just a standalone, we're taking all the funding and we're putting in a bike rack and that's it. It's a bike rack and what? So, there needs to be a bit of assessment done there to determine that the bike rack is a priority, it's needed. And then also looking at, if you're looking at it in terms of that 6E model, be that being the engineering piece, looking at doing some education, some encouragement, what kind of evaluation are we going to be doing there? Obviously an equity lens applied so that it's built into something broader, and there's some focus on sustainable outcomes happening there as well. So I just want to kind of put that in there as a bit of a caveat on use of fundings towards things that could be deemed really capital cost in nature. Looking at the couple that I have at the bottom there, there's some really excellent examples of templates that are from the Capital Region District's website, from their Ready Step Roll program on that website. So if you want to take a look at those for some really tangible ideas, I encourage you to do that. And you can use your funding for a new project. You can also use it to build off of an existing project. So some schools coming into this program may already have a school travel plan. They might be working on it. They might be trying to leverage and build off of that. So as long as you're using your funding toward new activities, you can apply for funding to build off of an existing momentum. So with all that, I'm going to take a breath, take a pause here, and see if Claire has any questions that have popped up that we can maybe respond to before we move on to the next section here.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions, just a reminder to pop the questions into that Q&A, which is found on the bottom ribbon of your screen. We've got one question from Anna. Are you looking for schools and school districts to be participants or municipalities as well?
So the funding needs to go to support outcomes at a school level. And I don't know if that's kind of what you're asking, but it's on the expression of interest form. We ask for a school name and we ask for a contact at a school. A school district and a municipality can be a partner in the project, and there is a space on that form to put those individuals at those organizations as partners on there. And we do strongly encourage the school to have those partnerships in place or to be starting that partnership now, using this as an opportunity to do so. But this is really meant to support activities and outcomes at a school level.
Okay, great. And we've got one more question about the project lead. Can a teacher or a student at a school be a project lead?
Yes, that is, a teacher or a student can be a project lead. If a student is a project lead, I mean, we can take that on a case-by-case basis, but I think it would probably be advisable to have kind of a teacher as like a co-lead or like a kind of a backup to help support that student as well. That would be my recommendation there, but yes.
Okay, awesome. And we've got a comment from Chris Fraser. I'll just read the comment so everyone can hear it. In my interactions with my school administration, it's become clear that even though they're on board with making active transportation improvements, they've been unable or unwilling to get key people at the local school board or municipality on board. So what resources or assistance are available for helping project leads navigate that bureaucracy of school boards and municipal governments?
I think that would really depend on your situation. I think we'd have to have a one-on-one conversation about what specifically the particular issue is, who the people are that you're trying to contact, what have you already tried to do. We'd have to try and look at ways that we could maybe offer some support there in terms of trying to connect you guys together. Maybe having an opportunity for us to share directly some information about this program and kind of promote it to them, bringing you in the conversation as well and help make that connection happen. That's off the top of my head kind of where we would sit on that. But I would, if there's more to that than what I'm really responding to, or I probably would venture to guess there's really more to the story, feel free to just email us, and I would be open to setting up a conversation with you to help determine specifically what it is that we can help you with.
Yeah,
there.
thanks, Jen. And we'll include the contact information afterwards. And if anybody has any specific questions about the type of capacity building or coaching supports, definitely get in touch with that email. We've got one more question and then we should probably move on to the next. So one more question from Colby. Can school districts apply as a whole, or does it need to be individual schools, similar to the previous one?
Yeah, so similar to that previous question, a school needs to apply. So if you did take a look at the expression of interest form, we are asking for a school's name on there. So a representative at a school district could connect with and partner with someone at the school and help them fill out that expression of interest form together. But we are not providing funds at a district-wide level for this program. It is to go towards the development of school travel plans and see active school travel outcomes at the school level. But district partners, the district level representatives can be partners in that project, but they cannot be receiving fundings for distribution across a whole school district.
Okay. All right. So I think we should move on, Jen. And
let's move on, and we'll hope to catch more of these questions at the end of the webinar. I just want to move on to program participation. Hopefully we'll be able to answer some of these as we talk about the next section here as well. So what do schools receive as part of the pilot? So you receive up to $10,000 in funding. And what that means, up to $10,000, means that if a school requires all $10,000 and you demonstrate in your application that you are in need of that, then by all means apply for $10,000. You're eligible for it. If a school does not need the full $10,000, you're welcome to apply for less than that. Capacity building supports from BC Healthy Communities. So that would include, just to be kind of less sort of jargony and vague about that, sharing of evidence-based tools and templates and information, again, from these existing models. So you're going to see a lot of information and templates that are branded by organizations or programs rather, like Ontario Active School Travel, Active and Safe Routes to School. They're not going to have our branding on it. We're actually testing out the existing resources here. So that's what we're doing here, sharing those with you, providing advice and guidance on if you need support with doing some school level data collection as part of your assessment, or whatever kind of survey you want to do to gather information at the school level. If you have some questions about that or need some advice, we're here for you. Applying an equity lens, again, that can be something that's a little bit daunting for some people, and we're really here for you to help you figure out, what does it mean to apply an equity lens? How do I know I'm doing it correctly? And establishing that community of learning and practice, if we're able to do so, if it's feasible. It would be a great strength to the cohorts that is involved to be able to have that opportunity. And so we're really going to try to make that happen. And what schools provide, pretty self-explanatory here. So at a school level, we want the schools to be able to commit to use the program resources that we are providing the project lead. They're going to be using them at a school level, and we need the support of the school to actually use those. Providing ongoing feedback to the school project lead for sharing with us to support the assessment of the success of this program. So how we're not going to know how it's working or if it's working well if we don't have the school support on board to be able to share that back with us. And a commitment to applying that equity lens, and also a whole school approach. So that just means, not using funds to support actions with one grade 3 classroom in the school, and that's all that's who's benefiting from it. It needs to be done so in a way that's supporting a shift in school culture over time as a whole. So this project lead, just getting a little bit more information about that. The project lead manages the project on behalf of the school. They will participate in the program learning curriculum that we are offering, providing feedback on the resources and tools that we're providing. And this will be via some brief surveys given to them at intermittent times. Maintaining communication with us about your project activities, how's it going, and submitting a baseline and a final report. And these are not onerous, but we do need to kind of gauge any shifts and changes that happen over time over the course of the year. Again, because it's a pilot program, we're really trying to gather as much feedback as we can. I just have on here that can there be 2 people that co-lead the project? Yes, absolutely. If capacity is an issue, 2 people can co-lead this together. Oh, I just want to back up and say one thing I forgot. So whoever your project lead is, they do have to be able to work with the school in a direct capacity. Again, as we are aiming to support school level change with the program. So not changes across a whole district or across a whole municipality. So I think somebody had asked that question. So I just want to reiterate that again. So that does bring us to the end. If you have any, the end of this section rather, if you do have any other questions about the participation, make sure you're reading that program guide as well. There's a bit more information there as well. Do we have any questions about program participation that have come up, Claire, in the past section?
We do have one from Liliana, who asks, can the school coordinator from the municipality apply on behalf of a specific school?
I would say yes, they can apply on behalf of a specific school as long as they're connecting with that school and the school knows that their school name is being put on this form and there's a contact person at the school as well. So we need that. We need the school to be the one that's on that form. So if it's somebody from if it's someone from a municipality that's supporting that to happen, they can put themselves down as a partner on the expression of interest form, but the municipality can support the school to apply and fill out that form.
Awesome. There's one question that I can answer from Kulvir, asking if only one school per district can apply. No, there's no limit on the number of schools per school district that can apply, as long as they're putting in separate applications. Is that right, Jen?
I would say so. I would say that that's right. Yeah, in general sense that more than one school can apply per district, yes, because this program is existing at a school level.
And there's one more question about participation. Can an applicant apply to be part of the program and not request funds?
I was not expecting a question like that, to not have needing funds. I would say potentially yes, but reach out to us and let us know what your circumstances, that you're not in need of any funding. And I'd love to just have a conversation about that directly with you in terms of what your involvement or in the program would look like. But I would say potentially yes, you could be involved in the program despite not needing any funding. But yeah, please reach out to us. So we're going to provide a email address at the end of the webinar for you to email. But yeah, we wouldn't discourage anybody from applying to be part of it just because they don't need the funds. So, but I just would love to learn more about that from you.
Okay, and there's a couple of questions that might be answered in the eligibility and application process. So let's move along to the next section now.
Yeah, let's do that. And then if we don't answer those, then we can definitely get to them after that. So on to the eligibility. So who can apply? Public schools in BC and independent schools in BC can apply. So does that include First Nations and Métis chartered schools? Yes, it does. Who cannot apply for this fund is school districts, municipalities, health authorities, or community organizations. These would be listed as partners to the school. So as we kind of mentioned before, any of these organizations or bodies can be a direct partner with the school and support them to apply and connect with them to enable them to apply and offer their like a letter of support or anything kind of informal even. But we want a name of a school on that application form, please. This is a really good opportunity if a school doesn't have a significant relationship with one of these partners or others. This is a great opportunity to form one. So when you're looking to submit an application, it might be a really good time to try and reach out to a health authority representative that you don't really have a good connection with. And this is a good time to do that. Throughout the course of the program, we will also be actively supporting you and encouraging you to strengthen and form these type of partnerships with school districts, municipalities, health authorities, et cetera, that if they're not really existing or they're really not that strong, we will be actively encouraging you to do that during the program as well. Submitting a strong application. So this is a section that I'm speaking to that's from the pages 3 to 4 of the program guide. So we've included these priority focus areas in the program guide to help you determine what kinds of projects we can fund with the program. So these are not a requirement, an eligibility requirement per se for you to do, but we're just being extremely forthcoming and really transparent with you, trying to give you as much information as we possibly can to support you to submit a strong application. So all we're trying to do is see that a school is thinking about ways to incorporate some of these areas into their project. And that tells us that you're thinking about elements of sustainability and project growth over time. And that's really what we need to be putting this funding towards, is something that's going to support longevity. The reason why we have school travel planning on here, you're probably wondering, is that in the case of schools that already have an existing familiarity with school travel plans, and maybe they've already got one started or they're building off of one. If that's, there is a question on there, I believe it's question 8 or 9 on the application that asks if you already have an existing familiarity with school travel planning. So if that's the case, put that in there. What have you guys done so far? What's your relationship with school travel planning so far? And that would be something that we want to be looking at as well. So take a look at pages 3 to 4 of the program guide for some examples under each of these areas as well, if you're not clear specifically what that could look like. That's it for the eligibility. There's not really a lot to say there, but I would love to take some questions about that if anything was not spoken to here.
I think you answered a couple of ones again about the project lead, but one person has asked how many schools will be selected. Not sure if we said that yet.
So we are aiming for a selection of 10 schools for this program.
Great. We again have a question from Cindy about the lead being a district staff member who works in tandem with a school-based co-lead. So again, I'll be speaking to that again in the application process, but there is a spot for partners to be listed on that expression of interest. And if anyone has any questions, just feel free to reach out to us and we'll be able to guide through that process.
And I think in terms of the ability for someone existing in a position like Cindy to be co-leading a project with someone at the actual school, yes, you can do that. You can co-lead that project because you are working, even though you're sitting at a district level, you are working in direct support of actions at a particular school. You're not working to support actions across the district. You're working for one school. So that would be a yes, you can do that.
Great. And there's one more question from Jim that we will be sort of touching on, but I'll ask it now. In the AST program guide, it mentions a preference for the 10 schools chosen for the pilot program. That preference is given to rural, semi-rural, and suburban schools. Will at least a few grants be allotted to schools in urban areas?
So we can speak to that in the application section as well, that we're about to go into, but the short answer on that is it is open to all schools. We are giving this, having this, again, just being really transparent here, having a preference towards trying to capture a very, an equitable spread of schools across the province. There isn't a lot of research or information out there right now that we found to determine how to design a province-wide program to really support the needs of rural schools. That we know active school travel is less successful in those communities, and we have a pretty good sense of, you know, it's a resource issue, it's an infrastructure issue, but we really want to be able to tap into capturing some of those schools here, as well as you know, schools who are Métis chartered schools and First Nations schools, because we really want to be able to actively try and support them specifically in the future. So that's just being really honest about the fact of why we're really hoping to capture some rural and semi-rural and suburban community schools. We know that active transportation is statistically more successful in higher density urban centers with more resources and, you know, less cars and more walking just by nature. So but for a school to be an urban school and be allowed to submit an application and be accepted, yes, we will also be looking at urban schools. Just because you're an urban school doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. And we are also kind of looking at the difference between what works well in the urban community versus the rural community. So I would say that yes, you can. We're still encouraging you to apply.
Awesome.
Okay.
And that's it for the questions for now.
Great. So I'm going to move on to the application process section, and I'm going to turn it back over to Claire here, who's going to give us the rundown on how to apply.
Thanks, Jen. So hi, everybody. My name's Claire. You've already heard my voice a little bit. I'm the Grants and Engagement Coordinator here at BC Healthy Communities, and I'll spend just a few minutes going over how to submit an expression of interest in 3 easy steps. So first off, the due date for these expressions of interest is November 15th. Before that date, please do read the program guide. Jen's been outlining a lot of the information that's in there today, and we've also included a link to that guide in the chat box. You can also visit this green URL here. Lots of great information, and we really recommend that you sift through that before submitting an application, before submitting an expression of interest. And again, if you have any questions at all, please contact us. The best way to get in touch is by emailing grants@bchealthycommunities.ca. We're also going to be sending out a short survey after this webinar, so you can also ask some questions there as well. But please don't hesitate to get in touch if anything's unclear. The third step is, of course, submitting an expression of interest. The actual expression of interest is an online application form. I really encourage you to visit this form after the webinar so that you can get familiar with it. To get to it, please just navigate to the BC Healthy Communities website. On the active school travel page, you'll find the link to the expression of interest at the top of that page. You can start this expression of interest, you can close the form and return to it later in case you want to finish it after a little bit of time or after you have some conversations with people. There is a button at the top right of that expression of interest form that says save and continue, so you can come back to it as much as you want before submitting it on November 15th. And we've made it as simple as we can. We are not requiring a budget with this expression of interest. As Jen mentioned, this is a pilot year, so on our end, we'll be working with the 10 selected schools to determine a budget and get a funding agreement in place once we've had a chance to go through those expressions of interest that are submitted on time. We're also not requiring any letters of support, but if you do have any letters of support from different community partners or municipal partners, there is a place towards the end of that form to tag on any extra documentation that you think would be helpful for us to see. If you go to the next slide, Jen, I can describe a little bit about how we'll be choosing the successful school communities. So we will be having a team of panelists to review and adjudicate the expressions of interest that are submitted on November 15th. First of all, we're of course going to be seeing if you meet the eligibility requirements. So that's the easy stuff. Are you located in BC? Are you a school? That basic information. We'll be asking a little bit about your school location, the name, address, as well as, of course, some contact information so we can get back in touch with you. The first couple of questions are asking a bit about your school community, as well as if you've done any active school travel work in the past. We'd like to hear about that if you have anything to share. And as Jen said, because the projects that we're hoping to support are at a school level, school should be the primary applicant. But again, if you have any questions about who should apply or the specific configuration of who the partners are, just please get in touch and let us know. We'll be especially looking at how the proposed activities are going to be supporting sustainable active school travel outcomes at the school level. These are questions 8, 9, and 10 in particular. So in the application guide, please check out those priority areas because we'll be wanting to see a link between one or more of these priority areas and the activities that you're proposing. And things really don't have to be set in stone at this time, but we do want to see your thinking about what you think will help sustain or create a culture of active school travel in your community context. And if you are going to be the one leading the project, if you think that you might be the project lead, you can tell us that in question 13. If you have someone else in mind that you think might be the project lead at your school, maybe a PAC member or a volunteer who's not on this call, definitely ask them before putting their name down. But we do have a spot to include that information if you've already had to think about who would be the project lead. And finally, as an organization, and we touched on this a second ago, but BC Healthy Communities, we do try to apply an equity lens to our own work as well. So for this, it does mean that we're going to be looking to distribute funding in an equitable way by having geographic representation and prioritizing schools with highest need. For this year's pilot, we're especially, again, encouraging schools in rural, semi-rural, and suburban communities to apply because we are taking a focused interest in determining what elements of this program work for schools that are outside of urban centers. But as Jen said, if you are an urban school, please don't hesitate to apply. Tell us a little bit about your school. We want to know what you think, what kind of activities could be creating that active school travel culture at your school. So everyone should be applying, and we are looking to see a broad range in terms of geographic representation. And just really quickly, my number one tip for submitting an expression of interest after reading the program guide is to use the whole form. Tell us a story, fill out the whole thing. So for example, in question 14 of that expression of interest, we ask about project partners, and there have been a lot of questions today about, kind of who should be applying for this and how to coordinate with different partners. So question 14 in the expression of interest is just a little table that asks for names and titles and proposed responsibilities, and it might get overlooked, but this can be very helpful, like Jen said, to get a conversation going with different folks who might be involved, which might help you create a stronger application. And it also really helps us as a committee who's reviewing this to see the different parts of the application sort of complement each other. So when you're filling out who you think your partners might be, and you talk about the types of activities that you're hoping to do, those can really complement each other. So make sure that you're looking at the expression of interest as a whole and looking through the whole thing and returning to it if you need to do it in multiple settings. So again, the expressions of interest are due on November 15th at midnight, and we'll let you know of the funding decisions as soon as possible within 30 days.
Great. Thank you so much, Claire. We'd like to open it up to broad questions. I do want to mention one thing, though, that I forgot to mention as part of the funding, which is something is really important, is that some of your funding can go towards supporting the time of a project lead to participate in the program, especially if it's somebody who's in a volunteer position and they need some funds to support their time as an honorarium, or you want to pay a student an honorarium to be a part of this program. That is permitted. So I just want to put that out there as well. So do we have any questions that we can respond to now at the end of the webinar?
We've got one question from Cindy asking if we can provide a PDF of the expression of interest. I don't think it's available currently on the website, but by the end of the day, we can definitely put up a PDF version of the expression of interest so you can download that. So Cindy will do that by the end of the day today. And there's another question for partners. Should we already have approval from them, or can we put the ones that we hope can help?
I would say put them all. Put ones you hope can help you and ones that you have approval from, and indicate on your expression of interest like differentiate between the two, those that you already have in place or those that are, you can put in brackets, potential. That would really help us identify who's already there versus those that you're going to be actively trying to partner with. Just let us know what's what. That would be really helpful. Yeah.
And one more detail on that, in the partners list, we do have a space for names and contact information. So if you have that person's email because there's already a relationship, please do put it in. It's generally best practice not to put people's names down if you haven't had a chance, their contact information, if you haven't had a chance to get their permission to use their contact information. But yeah, like Jen said, put down the groups that you think might be involved, even if it's not set in stone yet. And I'm not sure that there are many questions left. If there are any last minute questions, please feel free to pop them into the Q&A, but I think we've done a good job, Jen, of answering.
Awesome. And again, please email us. We're very open and receptive, and we're nice people over here, and we really want to talk to you and get a really fulsome picture of what it is that you're wanting to do, and we really want to help you do it. So, and if trying to be able to get an application in, there's some roadblocks there's some barriers for you. We'll see what we can do to help you. We want you guys to apply for this pilot, and we really want to see as many schools in here as we can, and a really good broad range of schools. And we're really excited to really take something that we know works, adapt it for the current very interesting circumstances that we're in, and make it work for us this year. So with that, I just want to put up our email address down at the last slide here, and also prompt you to please take a couple minutes to answer 3 short questions on a survey. That will be a pop-up window that comes up as soon as we end the webinar. It'll only take 2 minutes. If you don't have 2 minutes to spare, we will also be sending you an email with the survey following the webinar. And the survey itself is an opportunity for you to ask us any questions as well. And there will be a little box there that asks you to provide your email address for us to be able to get back to you. So that's an opportunity for you to put your questions in there as well. Thank you guys so much for attending. That is the conclusion of our webinar, and look for this to be posted up as a recording very shortly. And with that, I wish you all a very good day, and stay dry out there. Well, from here, that's where we are. So that's it.